Hey guys, how's it going? So, I'm having intermittent problems with my horn not working. Sometimes sometimes it'll work really quiet, sometimes it won't work at all. And while this usually isn't too much of a cause for concern, the problem is if somebody were to break into my car, I would never know it. And so I want to go ahead and get this fixed because I'm just not really comfortable not having my horn. You never know when you might need it. It's not really that important, but you just never know when you might need it. So when I go to lock my doors, obviously, there's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. I'll unlock it again, lock it, nothing. And just this morning it was working just fine. So what that tells me is that it is not a fuse, but it's actually the horn, probably the connection to the horn. Maybe water got up in there. So we're going to go ahead and get access to the horn and figure out what's wrong with it. The horn is located directly behind the passenger headlamp assembly, and in order to get the headlamp assembly off, you need a 10mm socket. Now this applies to my '08 Grand Prix. You may have the plastic pull tabs that are in the same exact spot. You just basically take a hold of them and just lift up on them to release it. It's pretty much identical, but for these it requires a 10mm socket to get those bolts off. Okay, so with the bolt off, we basically just lift up on this and that will release the headlamp assembly. Carefully pull it out, you don't want to scratch your paint. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set it right here and it'll stay, it's not going to go anywhere. And this right here is the horn. So here's the horn right here, and it's a dual tone or two-note horn. So you essentially have two horns. They have different tones, and it's common for one of these to go out. I mean, look at how exposed this horn is. So if you were to drive through a puddle of water or something, water gets up underneath here, and it just causes all sorts of problems. So I'm going to try to lock my door again, and still nothing. So I'm not getting anything out of it. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it out of there and see what we can come up with. So in order to get the entire assembly out, so both horns, there's actually a bolt. You may be able to see it. It's right there. You see that bolt right there? That's a 10mm, and that needs to come out, and then that will release this entire assembly. Just get yourself a small extension and you should be able to reach in there and grab it. Alright, so the horn has been detached from the frame. This is what it looks like. Pretty simple. Not much to it at all. So there's a harness right here that needs to come out, and it looks like, to me, it comes off right there. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get that disconnected right now. Just use a flat blade screwdriver and pull it on out of there. Alright, so here's what the harness looks like, and you can see this green tab here. Let's give you a better angle. Just take this green tab, push it up as far as you can so it's completely unlocked, okay? Then you can take a flat blade screwdriver and push up on this tab here while you're pulling out on the harness, and that should release it. Now that that's released, we have the actual horn, and we're going to go ahead and take it inside, and we're going to see what's wrong with it, maybe clean it out. So let's go ahead and get it inside right now. Okay, so with the horn inside, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be cleaning all these contacts, and it looks like these are pretty easy to get off. They've got little tabs here on the side here. I'll just take a flat blade screwdriver, pull these both off, clean them up real good, and then hook it up to a 12-volt power supply, or just plug it into the car again and see if that fixes it. Alright, so what I'm seeing here is, you can see right there, there's quite a bit of corrosion. Rust has formed and so on. That might be the problem. That actually might be the cause of the problem, because if that's not getting a good connection and it's intermittent, then that will probably keep this from running properly. These over here seem to look a lot better, although they're still dirty. I'm going to go ahead and clean these out. I'm just going to take a brush. Actually, I have a small wire brush that I'm going to use to clean these out. and that will hopefully fix the problem. Looking on the inside, you can see here, look at all that rust, corrosion. So I'm going to clean these out too. I've got a small wire brush, as I said. These two here look to be okay, but I'm going to still clean them out. And the connection here on the end doesn't look too bad. But anyway, I'm going to clean all these out and see if that fixes the problem. So I cleaned up the contacts as best that I could, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in one of these horns. Basically, I'll plug it into the harness that's on the car, and then I'll plug in, well actually, that's I'll go ahead and just plug this one in and then test it like that and see if the horn works. Alright, so I have one of the two horns plugged in. I got it angled away because it's probably going to be kind of loud, so I'll go ahead and lock the car. Alright, so one horn definitely works. Now we're going to try it on the other horn. I went ahead and plugged both of them in, and we're going to go ahead and see if they work. Yep, they sure do. So, and that's loud, by the way. I can see why they angled them down and put them behind the bumper. Alright, so both the horns work, and that's good news. Just took a little bit of cleaning, and yeah, now they both work just fine. So let's go ahead and put everything back together. Alright, so it is kind of hard to see where you need to put the bolt. That portion, I'm trying to get this down here. Okay, so right there is actually the tab. That's not where the bolt goes. There's a that's where the tab goes. And then you can see that little hole there. See if I can get focused. Having a hard time getting focused. There's a little hole there on the right hand side. That is where the bolt actually goes. So it's kind of hard to see, but just fiddle around, you should be able to find it. Alright, so the horn is back in place. It was a little awkward, actually, trying to get it back into place. It's in there nice and solid. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to rattle around or anything. So now we just need to get the headlamp assembly back in, which isn't all that difficult. Just be careful you don't damage your paint. I'll probably have to do this with two hands, but yeah, it's not too difficult to get that back in there. Alright, so it's back in. Lock it in place, then get your 10mm bolt, bolt it back down, and you should be all set. Okay, everything's back in place. One final test. And there we go. So we've successfully repaired a failing horn just by cleaning the contacts. And you may not have the same results. Your horn might actually be faulty. You also may have a fuse that has gone bad, and that's something to consider. But for me, it was as easy as just cleaning out the contacts. So if you have any questions, definitely let me know. Take care, guys.